Welcome to Recovery Comes Home Radio, your go-to podcast for all things related to addiction recovery. Whether you are an individual in recovery, a concerned loved one, or a dedicated professional, this podcast is tailored just for you. Here we are all about empowering you with the tools, insights, and inspiration you need to move forward. So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Recovery Comes Home Radio. Today, our guest is Daryl Tanner. He has been consulting 30 to 4-year-old co-ed singles for several years now, working with groups of 10 to 15 people. They talk about their past life experiences and how they feel, mostly dealing with depression and anxiety. Daryl counsels them on many life issues and has had much success talking about positioning clients' life for a happier, more fulfilling life and lifestyle. He talks about setting better expectations to help people live a better and more stress-free life. He was encouraged by many groups to write a book called Great Expectations Today, which he did, and discusses setting better real life expectations and also deals with anger and anger management. Welcome, Daryl, to the program.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on today. So let me ask you, this is a podcast about addiction and addiction recovery from both a individual, a loved ones, and a professional perspective. And you fall into the professional perspective. You really help people with their issues that might be getting in the way to them living a life that they actually can be intrinsically motivated by.
Yes.
And
yes.
Really not just have to drudge through life, but create a life for themselves that they're excited to get up in the morning.
Right. Exactly.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how your work might intersect with people in recovery?
Oh yeah. A lot of I counsel with 30 to 40-year-olds, singles. Many of them are mothers with children. They've got what we call hurts, habits, or hang-ups. A lot of
Celebrate recovery, I reckon.
There you go. There you go. And a lot of it has to do with previous addictions, whether it was drugs or alcohol, even sexual addictions.
Of course, problem behaviors we have
many
gambling, shopping, gaming. We have people that are in their 50s and their families are actually leaving them because they've created a whole new family upstairs.
Right.
And they're living with another family down in the basement.
Yeah. Even pornography.
And pornography. Yeah. Talk about these things.
Yeah. So, you know, as talking to them and trying to get them on a place where they can, I love group therapy because people can share and then they can find out that, someone else has had my issue. I'm not alone. And they can talk about what they've gone through and where they found help and little ideas that have helped them. But a lot of my success has been discovering that, hey, maybe your expectations just are consistently too high. And maybe the people that you deal with in your family, their expectations are so high. When you come home, they're like, okay, you're better now, get a job, let's get going. And that's not something a recovered person wants to hear. Again, that's throwing pressure on, and that's pushing them back into the same, addictive area that they came from. So when I was talking about this, several of the, especially the young ladies with children said, you really ought to write a book on expectations and setting better expectations. And so I coined it Great Expectations Today by D. Tanner, and just published it on Amazon. I'd never done a book before, but
congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's such a hassle.
People think writing a book is just like people sit down and just start writing and it flows out so effortlessly. It doesn't work like that, does it?
Well, no. I mean, what I wrote was I was traveling in the world of sales for 30 years before I got into counseling. And a lot of my experiences I put in the book were from real life, my experiences.
Sure.
That and setting the wrong expectations and what happened. And, but by nature, we have, we're from birth, we're kind of like, gonna walk today, and then it's on up to learning and grades and sports and whatever. And everybody has set high expectations. They want you to do the best. My mom had a saying, Daryl Tanner, you can do anything you set your mind to do, which is great. And I think that's, positive. But in the world of the addiction, it becomes very negative. And it's always, I know I'm expected to do this, or I'm expected to do that. And my whole point was, look, don't crutch yourself. Don't put crutches out there to say, I'm expected to do this, or I'm expecting this. Take baby steps in whatever you do. Like, you're going to get in the car, you're going to go to the clinic. Okay, is there going to be traffic? Yes. Do we need to plan to leave a little early? Yes. What if there's an accident? Well, maybe we should leave earlier if that highway is always, cluttered or being worked on. Here, I live in San Antonio. We have a stretch of highway, 1604 at I-10. They've been working on it for years. So if you know you're going that way and there's no other way to go, you got to go that way, then you're going to leave. You got to double your time to leave, because maybe you get there a little early. That's fine. But my whole point was to our group was that don't harness yourself. Don't pull that piano around. Unleash yourself and lower your expectations. If you're going on a blind date, okay, well, I'm going on a blind date. I haven't met this person before. Then don't get too excited about it.
Right.
He could be a real dud.
Yeah. or he could be your next husband.
That's right. That's right. But
go open-minded go open-minded to it.
Yes. And that's a lot
Be
of
flexible.
Yes. And that's a lot of what I talked about in my book. And then I followed it up with a few chapters of anger management, because most of the time with our great expectations, they cause anger, because like I live in Military City is kind of the nickname for San Antonio. A lot of people have PTSD, and I have some of those in my groups. And boy, they can turn on a dime, and things can get really bad quickly.
When you're triggered, it activates that reptilian part of your brain.
Yes.
So you're in fight, flight, or freeze. And the prefrontal cortex, which is where all those executive center functionings, like, oh, maybe I better not say that out loud, or gosh, if I say that, I might get fired.
Right.
Those tapes don't play through. There's no time. It's just action, reaction, no pause. Exactly. We actually call that drop the rock.
Okay.
In 12-step language. We're not just a 12-step program, but heavily 12-step based. And my husband and I live a 12-step lifestyle. But it's funny how, particularly with addiction, we serve people that are high functioning. They're great at being a lawyer or a doctor or an NFL coach, but they just are horrible at being CEOs of their own life.
Yeah.
Because the bar is raised on them so high. I think it's easy to get bogged down in that, about those expectations. And one of the things we use is we tell people to let go of the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Because if you get into resentment, it's like taking poison and hoping the other person will die. You're the one that's going to be suffering the consequences.
I love that.
You mentioned PTSD. Almost everybody that comes to us has trauma, unresolved. They get into a cycle of, this is just my life, right?
Right.
So, and really, by the time people get to us, they've been around the block a few times. They have several treatment center graduations under their belt. They've been to dozens and dozens and dozens of sober houses, recovery residences like ours.
Right.
But for whatever reason, it just wasn't time. Sometimes addiction is a couple of steps forward, one step back, or sometimes it can be a couple of steps back, one step forward.
Right. Right.
And then we've got the mental issues now on top of it, with everybody since 2019 having some form of PTSD. We all went through that. That's a year that changed everybody's life forever.
It didn't it though? Wow.
And you went from, going out a couple of times with the guys to having boxes of liquor delivered to your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That was
and
bad.
some of the and some people recovered, and some people got trapped in a prison of their own making.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's really, we've had an explosive growth at our church. I got a community Bible church. We're non-denominational church, but we give free classes and a lot of different classes. And those courses have exploded after COVID because I think, especially my age group, 30 to 40 singles, I think they discovered that, wow, if I can't go out 2 or 3 times to the bar to meet people, or if I can't go and go have a coffee and sit there and see people I know, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that came to a real hard reality when
Yes.
our survival, when the suicide rates went sky high,
Yep.
along with drug addiction, alcohol. So personally, I've seen the explosive side of that, but I think we're going to have another 5 years of at least of dependency counseling with addiction and things like that because of what happened at COVID.
Yeah,
And I mean,
absolutely.
our country had never gone through that before, something being locked down like that. And you really can't blame it on anybody because you really thought, well, this is the weirdest thing that's ever happened.
Absolutely. And it was natural for people to reach for something
Yeah.
to assuage those feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. And
Yeah.
in those early days, we did, I mean, none of us knew what was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't know if it was going to wipe everybody out, like things have done in the past.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have said often that I think one of the things that we did wrong as a nation and as a world is not have a day of remembrance for people who died from COVID,
Oh yeah. That's a great
to
thought.
bring closure to everybody, to just
Yes.
honor the people that, were victims in that early stage of death due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Now actually more people died in 2023 of addiction than they did of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But and it was only by a few thousand, but it's still,
Yeah.
it's not it's not a talk that people want me to talk about, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They wanted to go away, but like you said, I think we're going to be dealing with this addiction face has already changed,
Right.
looking like you and I instead of the wino in the gutter.
Right.
Everybody's got hurts, habits, and hangups, don't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, what I've seen is that, and I tell everybody this, look, we're made for 2 things. We're made to fill the hole in our soul,
Absolutely.
which is Jesus Christ. And then after that, he says, Adam, I came up with Adam, but he needs somebody. He needs someone to be with him. He needs company. So all throughout the Bible, it talks about Jesus and his disciples and going out and meeting the people. And we need that socialization, and we need it as a community group. And I think that that's so strong that everybody needs to. I've been in my wife and I've been in our group for 14 years, in our community group, and we share amongst other people that want to share. You have to be committed. You have to be authentic. And you have to have the confidentiality within the group. But in that group, we share many things, prayers for our kids and our loved
Right.
ones and our families. And but in my groups, with dealing with addiction, they need to know that other people have similar struggles, and they're not the weak link.
That's
But
right.
we need to, iron sharpens iron. We need to feed off of each other and get strength and have strength. And then after you've prayed and gone to the Father with whatever your concerns are, that you can share those concerns with others and maybe get some feedback and support from them if they're authentic.
Yes, and that's the part I think of organized religion that sometimes, oftentimes, people in recovery have a hard time with because of the stigma and the shame. We wouldn't like roast somebody because they had a predisposition to diabetes.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're so right there. The church itself, the body of the church, and that's man-made. That's not Christ-made. I mean, Christ said, "Hey, when you get more, two or more are gathered, okay, that's a church." I mean, you've got people, they can meet at a home. That's a church. So people don't realize that. So, but the regulated religion has caused so much hurt
Yeah, harm.
for people because they're legalistic. They're like, "Oh, you've got to do this, or why aren't you wearing this? Why would you come to church dressed like that?"
That's
In
right.
their mind, there's so many rules that you need. But I feel like a church is anywhere where the Holy Spirit is present. And it's
Right.
especially at our church is a non-denominational church, community Bible church. And our pastor says, you don't give to a church, you give through a church. And
Yeah.
we're debt free, and we offer all these courses and classes. I've got to tell you, even though we're talking somewhat about my book, I also teach facilitate a course in a book called Safe People. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the best. It's one of the best courses by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr.
Oh,
John
Henry
Thompson.
Cloud, sure.
Yeah, it's one of the best courses I've ever taught. And more of my addicted, people in my recovery groups, they get more out of that course than any course that I've ever talked about, other than just them sharing. And that is how to identify safe people. And hey, where do you find safe people? Well, it's not always a church, because
No, it's not.
those legalistic people can really hurt you. And there are a lot of people. I mean, over 65% of our congregation are ex-Catholics.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we've got a lot of Methodists that moved in, some Baptists, and
Well, and our audience, is coming from a variety of different
yes, yes,
backgrounds, and there is a lot of PTSD that happens because of organized
yeah,
religion, whether it be Christianity or Judaism or Buddhism or Shintoism. It doesn't matter, where the rules are, like you said, are man-made. Rather, they focus on the religion and
yeah,
the doctrine and the legalism instead of the relationship.
yes, yeah,
We
and that's
we
all it's about.
encourage a relationship to a higher power. In the beginning, there are certainly people that you start asking them to notice the coincidences, right? That I know to be miracles and
Mhm.
you know to be miracles.
Right.
But to somebody that's been hurt by the church all those years and they don't want anything to do with it, they can get that Holy Spirit moment in a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
It can happen. God's not limited. He can show up anywhere,
that's right. That's right.
and in any, maybe today's lesson came from something you heard on the radio,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, but it's a reminder that this is a relationship. That's one of the key factors. Addiction is at its root a spiritual problem and requires a spiritual solution.
yeah, yeah. It's a need that they're trying to fill, and most addicts will not be open to Jesus until they're ready, till they've gotten so low that they're saying, okay, now I'm robbing my family. I never thought I would get this low. Or I had one guy in my recovery group, he had been an alcoholic, or he's still an alcoholic, but I mean, he had been hard drinking. And I said, hey, Steve, why did you how did you finally quit and get sober? He said, I woke up after 40 plus years of drinking. I woke up one morning and I said, I am just so tired of feeling like crap.
Yeah.
He said, every morning
Yeah.
I'd wake up with a splitting headache and I'd have to go right back to the source that led me there that the night before. And he said, I just quit cold turkey. And he goes, I've never gone back. And he said, about a month later, I accepted Christ. And I've been, a teetotaler ever since. And he goes, I haven't missed it once. And people drink around me and he goes, I just don't miss it. He goes, I remember what it was to feel that bad. And I said, it's too bad that we all have to get that low before we can get really that truly
Well,
high.
yeah, and I cut it down to um what whatever people come to the realization that there is a power greater than themselves that created them.
Mhm.
I think the shame and the guilt keeps a lot of people from God for a long time. They're hiding,
Right.
because they're ashamed. That's what Adam and Eve did, right? They covered themselves. They knew
Right.
that they were naked. God said, who told you you were naked? Well, who told you that addiction was okay for you to do every day? Are you burying your talent?
Right.
You're burying your talent, so, and that's not how we mature and we grow.
Right.
But again, it starts with the relationship. It starts with, we'll tell people to get on their knees and pray in the
Right.
morning and the evening. Say thank you when you wake up and thank you when you go to bed.
Right.
It can be as simple as that. And we tell people, I don't care if you think you're talking to nobody. Just because you don't believe that a power greater than yourself, God, exists, God doesn't not know that you exist.
Right. Right. Exactly. I mean, I, if we have no higher power to thank and look forward to, then why
What
are
are we
we here
doing
on earth?
here?
Yeah. Why did God put us on the earth? And basically it's to share his message of love and grace. And I
And be the
said,
hands and feet, right?
yes, yeah. And I told, like, I had a young lady the other day say, well, I've always had the question of where am I going? I go, exactly. Where are you going? Why are you here? And then where are you going? And I said, Jesus laid that out pretty clear. The great commandment: go out and tell others about me and love your neighbor as you would love yourself. I mean, that's pretty
Well,
clear.
and that all is true. They just have to start from, they're not there yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That comes with maturity. But
Right.
I'm like grassroots gospel, right? I'm not chapter and verse girl, but where Jesus walks up to the man that's on the mat and he's complaining that the
Yeah.
pool's stirring up. He's like, "Yeah, everybody gets there before me and I can't get there." And
Pity
Jesus
party.
is like, "Well, do you want to be well?" And of course, just like everybody that's asked that question, "Oh yeah, I want to be well." Then take up your mat and walk,
Yeah.
right? This is a program of action
Mhm.
and doing something different, noticing those little coincidences until they can become miracles.
Mhm.
And you see that God has actually been looking out for you, not abandoned you. That's the other thing too, is because a lot of people have had bad experiences with their father. So
Mhm.
calling God father is very
Tough. Yeah.
hurtful and
Yeah.
difficult for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But when they say things like your higher power can be a doorknob, I'm the first to disagree. A doorknob didn't create you. It doesn't have power greater than you.
Right.
Now the police, they're a power greater than yourself.
Right.
They've been given authority, right?
Right.
Um, there's lots of things in your life that you've believed in and given value to. So now let's switch that over to a spiritual side,
Mhm.
because anytime you've got that God-shaped hole in your heart and you start filling it with pornography, you start filling it with alcohol, you start filling it with shopping, you start
Mhm.
filling it with eating, you start filling it with drugs, it's never going to be enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
You'll always want more.
right. Yeah. And I try to stress to my audience is that, look, God wants to bless you in so many ways. What do you think keeps him from blessing you in so many ways? I said, the only thing that stands between you and God is sin. So you need to corner sin. You need to decide when and how you're going to break free from sin. And this woman said, a lady with a kid said, "Well, she said, I haven't seen that blessing." And I said, "Well, you're here in the group. Why are you here?" And she goes, "Well, I've been living with this guy for 12 years, and um, he just doesn't think my way. But we're living together, and I've just had a lot of problems with him." And I said, "Well, if you're not married, there is sin involved." I said, I'm not judging you. I'm just telling you, based on the Bible, the truth, through truth and grace, when God met the woman at the well, he said, "Where's your husband?"
Yeah.
She was there at noon and she said, "I have no husband." He said, "Well,"
Yeah,
he's
right.
kind of like, "I think you had 4 or 5," and she was like, "You know me better than I know myself." So anything that separates us from God, we can't see and have those blessings fulfilled. But I mean, the flesh is weak and we're all made of flesh. We're all going to sin sooner or later. We may sin every day and not even realize it. But the question, are we asking God to forgive us of our sins? And we know that we sinned. And so,
And also I'll say, God speaks to all of us. Whether
yes,
you get the cosmic 2x4 or the still small voice is up to
yeah,
you.
yes,
If you're addicted to the cosmic 2x4, I can't help you
right, right.
because you're just self-flagellating and you're not, we start with the how of
Right,
recovery: honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
right.
Right? Just be open-minded to the fact that you didn't create yourself. You
Mhm,
don't keep yourself awake while you're sleeping.
right,
You don't keep your heart beating. You're not
right.
operating your lungs. You don't have to go through that every day and go, okay, I need to breathe now.
Yeah, yeah,
God has taken care of a lot of things for us, but he asks some things of us back.
right. Yeah. I've seen, and I've had nurses testify to this, and I have a couple of doctors in one of my groups now, and they would agree to me. And I said, I've seen the most happy people that were really spirit filled in both life and right before death.
Mhm.
I've seen people on their deathbed say, I'm ready, Father. Please come take me. Take me when you're ready, but I'm ready." And they've had cancer, they've been dying, they had a stroke, and they're getting ready to go on the machine, or they were doing the what is it, the kidney dialysis, which is terrible,
Yeah.
which is you keep having to go in. I've had people just say, "I can't be poked anymore. I will just stay home." And then they soon after that they pass. But I mean, if they're spirit filled, they know they're going to a better place. And I've seen them in life and almost death. And they just said, all I had to do was remove the sin in my life. And again, you're not going to remove sin every day. I mean,
No,
I'll get,
that's what I'm saying. Sometimes
yeah,
the,
yeah,
the the sin is small, so you get the still small voice. If
right.
you don't pay attention to the still small voice, the volume's going to get turned up.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah,
after the volume is turned up full blast and you're still not getting it,
yeah,
that's when the cosmic 2x4 comes out. And
it,
I was so my background is not in addiction. It's in being health challenged my whole life. I was born with a divided pancreas,
mm.
and we didn't really, my mom knew something was up, but the doctors told her it was colic. Uh, you know how it goes. I was born in 1971, so
Okay.
that's how they rolled back then.
Right.
But when I was 23, I got taken out by the runner playing co-ed softball, and I ended up in the hospital until about 4 years ago. Um, 2 comas, paddled back to life, hospice at the end of 2008. But when I was diagnosed, I didn't listen. I didn't pay attention to the
Right.
slow down signs. You know, you're moving too fast. You have to incorporate that you've got an illness into your
Right.
life. But I was 23 when I was diagnosed. So I was like, let me run as fast and as far away from this as I possibly can. So I can relate to people that come to us because
Right.
they're running as fast as they can, as far away. But I got that cosmic 2x4 right across the head and put in a coma. You know, if I'm not going to slow down enough, God slowed me down enough that I had to listen. And I
Right.
was in a place, it wasn't heaven, but it was closer to God than we live now.
Yeah.
I call it a down payment on heaven.
Wow.
Um, I was able to see my body, people talking to me with my eyes closed, and I was angry to be
Yeah.
back in my body when I got back in. God and I had some big knockdown dragouts, which I won none of for a good year. I was really mad to be back in this 3D body and world. I
Hmm.
miss home. That was home. That's home, right? Still
Hmm.
today, that's
Hmm.
home.
Yeah.
Um, that was really hard for my husband to hear me say I miss home when I was,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
That's a fantastic story.
yeah, and it really opens your eyes that I don't, in the last 4 years, I don't get those cosmic 2x4s anymore.
Yeah.
You know how fast it can turn around.
Right. Yeah.
That's why the promises in AA, they talk about all these promises coming true. You know, you'll understand how to handle situations which used to baffle you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It lists all of these things that come from making the next right choice.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's good for all of us, right? Is
Right.
just
Right.
do the next right thing.
If you if you look back on your life, the people that have survived addiction or have not even encountered addiction, you look at their lives or your life and you say, where has God blessed me? And if you look back, you can probably comparing it to other people's lives, you can figure out that you've been blessed in many other ways that you don't even know about. Like
That's what I'm talking about. You look
yeah,
back and you go, I've been carried for half of
yes,
my life.
yeah. I went to my, oh, I don't even want to say the year, but I went to one of my high school reunions last year, and I met this guy that was like the big guy in high school, big star football player. All this, he'd been in prison for 20 years. He,
Wow, no
he's,
kidding.
he said, I was out drinking with a couple of friends and I had just gotten my first job at a college. And one of the guys, and we started doing some drugs together. And he goes, nothing hard, but anyway, one of the guys said, if we robbed this bank, they don't have much security. We could rob them, get away with it, and we'd probably come away with a couple $1 million, and that would be enough to live on. And so he drove the getaway car in an armed robbery, and he ended up serving about 20 years because for good time because it was like a 30 or 40 year sentence. It was unbelievable. And I was talking to him, and he goes, Daryl, just that split decision
Oh,
where I agreed to be involved and then took the next step to, he goes, if I'd have just had a power, something in my life that would have said, do you want to do that? And I think it's people praying for you. I
yeah.
think it's people that see you, they know you, and they go, I'm going to pray for Daryl. I I've done some crazy things, and it's not that I haven't been caught. I have been caught a few, but they ended up being minor when I was much younger. But and I talked to another gal, and she said she just tried. She just was with her friends at a party and tried some cocaine. Back in those days, we never even thought about doing cocaine. It was
Right,
all marijuana. It was the biggest
right.
thing going. She did a little coke and she got hooked. She goes, I was hooked I've been on and off, in and out of addictive programs. And she goes, I finally got straight about 10 years ago. But she goes, I was on it for 30 years.
For 30 years.
Lost two families, lost many jobs. She was a real smart person. So I'm just saying,
We like to say that they gave them away because lost indicates that they misplaced it somewhere. But,
yeah,
you lost your phone. No, you didn't. You sold
right.
it.
Yeah.
Let's get honest.
But
Um,
But
But yeah,
if you think about you and you look back at that type of stuff and you go, gosh, I I turned down a couple of things like that. Like as at high school, I went to several parties. It was like the old was it Three Dog Night song.
yeah,
Mama told me not to come, and I was there, and I was like in this room and in that room, and I'm like, geez, they're smoking pot, they're doing harder drugs, they're dropping LSD, and I just didn't do any of that. I was kind of scared of it, and that was the Holy Spirit kind of moving me around, saying, "Okay, buddy, get your butt out of here." And we left. I was with two girls, and we left, and friends of mine still know them today, and you make the decision not to be involved, and you look back, and that's a God thing. That's a Holy
a
Spirit
God thing.
moving you
A God
out the
thing.
door. When other
And
people,
it's funny because so back to that what place does God have in recovery?
yes,
In the early days for people that have been particularly harmed by organized religion, whichever
right,
denomination or religion you're talking about, um, use group of drunks, God, or good orderly direction, right? It's about doing the next right thing
yeah,
for all of us. And I think that God knew that we couldn't do it alone. If
yes,
left to our own devices, we will choose left instead of right. That's
right,
pretty clear. So we've been given others. That's why the tagline to Recovery Comes Home is connecting families impacted by addiction as
mhm,
they heal together.
right,
Because this is not a solitary. Isolation's not good for anything, let alone, I mean, it's really horrible for addiction.
yeah, yeah,
So
true.
we need other people. Let's talk real briefly. We're almost out of time here, but let's talk a little bit about the anger management. When our families get to us, it's like a two rams battering together. They've been dealing with this for a long time. They're waiting by the phone for it to ring to, are you dead? Are you in the hospital? Have you relapsed again?
Yep.
How can we transform? In the Bible, it says, in your anger, do not sin.
Yes.
So it's not like it's a surprise that we're going to be angry.
Whoa, yeah. And there were cases of almost every disciple getting mad, killing someone, in the Bible. So I
Slicing
mean,
an ear off, it's just another day in the.
nothing big. Yeah. There goes your ear. Yeah, I mean, I went through this anger management course myself many years ago, uh, just because I had some things I had to deal with from my childhood, and they fostered from getting into many 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 fights at school, and just on into, and I got married and really young, and my wife and I were always trying to improve our marriage, and I've been married now for like 47 years, but still, we'd go to these conferences, and I said, this is something that I think I could help me. It could help me, and it might help other people. And
Mhm.
then living here in Military City, I tell several stories in the book about PTSD and anger management, but this course, I talked about it and I credit it in the book, but it's the 4 questions to ask yourself is, after you've gotten angry, is, do I enjoy getting angry? Because most people don't. They get angry, but then later they go, oh, why did I do that? Or, I feel bad that I did that. The next one is, does it produce the intended results when I get angry? It never does. I mean, you're flailing away about something, and man, if it's your wife or your spouse, you're usually in big, deep doo doo because you've yelled or you stomped around, and then you look back and you go, did I get the results I was looking for? No.
No,
Um, could I get the same results, or can I get the same results in a more effective way?
a
Yeah,
healthier, more
yeah,
productive
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah. How would I be different if I controlled my anger? And that is a big thing because, it feeds off of the expectations. And so many people, when they have those misset expectations, they roll right into anger. So that's where we see a lot of the road rage. And we see that in San Antonio. Gosh, if it's not on the news every night, it's on at least every other night. It probably averages every night.
Oh, well, I think since 2019, the repressed anger that
Yes.
people have is just it's overflowing into people are killing each other now at the supermarket, It's just or at the schoolyard, banging her head on the ground, just crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, and definitely never how things were supposed to be. But I
Yeah.
I think in these turbulent times, we do have a resource to draw on, and that is a God of my understanding, who in my life expresses itself in the person of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
In others' life, it expresses itself differently. But at the end of the day, we all need to recognize that God-shaped whole and look towards developing a relationship with that power
Yes.
that created you, and surrounding yourself with other people
Mhm.
who have already developed a relationship with a power greater than themselves. Because when you first start this journey out,
Mhm.
it's kind of willy-nilly. You don't know what
Mhm.
you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, you can feed off. I mean, my biggest hope is that, I mean, anger is mentioned over 70 times in the Bible.
Yeah, that's
So,
what I'm saying. So it's not
yeah,
a surprise, right? It's just like
yeah,
the angels saying, "Don't be afraid."
yeah,
Well, if
right.
if they didn't think we were going to be afraid, they wouldn't said, "Don't be afraid."
Exactly, exactly. And if we could just feed off other people's wisdom and discernment that we know are spiritual, we've been around them long enough that we know that they pray for people, and more than anything, that they want to be a blessing to others than be blessed. I mean, that to me, that speaks more about being a Christian than anything is let me bless you versus you blessing me.
Well, and that's how the program is different now than it was when they actually first started. Um they started from some place called the Oxford Group. And in the Oxford Group, you help another alcoholic so they can stay sober.
Oh, okay. Huh.
But what works is you helping another person so you can stay sober.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The outpouring, that's why it's the principle of step 12 is service. You can't do anything until you give it away.
Yes. Yes. That's so true. I mean, our whole mantra at CBC is up, in, and out, up to the Father, in to community group, and out to the community.
The community,
The
sure.
service, the service.
Sure.
And
And
that's
that would apply with what we're doing too, is that,
right.
first you get yourself together. It's basically trust God,
Right.
clean house, help others.
Right. Exactly.
And so let me ask you, if this is the last question that I always ask everyone, if you could go back and talk to the younger Daryl
Okay.
and give Daryl some advice on dealing with expectations, dealing with anger,
Mhm.
dealing with PTSD, how would you talk to yourself differently? What would you say?
First off, I would say grab that higher power first and realize, what it can do for you. I would have done it. I would have done it younger, and I would have kept it in mind throughout my earlier years. Number two, I'd say be patient. Patience is the key to all wisdom, because I'm still mastering patience today, and it makes me mad.
Of course. Yeah. You know what's funny is we talk about in step 6 and 7 removing defects, but
Yeah.
you don't remove them, God removes them, which
Yeah,
means
yeah,
that you don't know
exactly.
when they're going to be removed.
And I pray for patience all the time. But it's one of those things. And then third is to learn the benefits of forgiving.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because I as a kid and growing up and on and on and on,
That's a topic that I have to bring you back for, forgiveness.
Yeah. I mean, it is so detrimental to our future.
It sure is.
It's a sore that festers, and it's really sad when I see people hanging on to it. And your life will become so much brighter to forgive, and you not necessarily forget, but definitely to forgive. So.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. The time has just flown by, Daryl. I
Thank
will
you.
have to have you back on again, and we can talk about forgiveness.
Would love to.
But thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank
And
you.
for everybody listening, I hope you have a safe and healthy, happy day out there. We will see you on the next episode of Recovery Comes Home Radio. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to Recovery Comes Home Radio. We hope that today's episode has provided you with valuable information and insights on the recovery process. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Keep seeking support, practicing self-care, and moving forward one step at a time. Until next time, stay strong, stay resilient, and stay humble. Hope lives here.